Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes.
Madam Chairman, I have reviewed the minutes and find them to be in order, and without objection, I move for their approval.
Very good, thank you. We have a second? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you. Health Department.
Mayor Ketchum, Madam Chairman, and Commissioners of the committee, good evening. Tonight I will be presenting the Health Department report of Community Health Outreach and providing a COVID-19 update. If you will, please take a look at your March 2022 report of Community Health Outreach. As we look at our columns labeled Promote, Protect, and Improve, we continue to work hard to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 here in our county, but to also do the work of public health. In the month of March, we'll be able to go out and do lots of events in the community, as well as participate in some classes at our health department. Such classes as our diabetes prevention at First Baptist Church, our kids chef classes at McFadden Community Center and Patterson Park Community Center, and then also Making Better Choices classes at Daniel McKee School. Additionally, if you look at our improved section with our clinical encounters, you can see that our numbers are starting to mirror those numbers of last year and even exceeding some of those numbers in our clinical encounters as we continue to open up our doors and provide clinical services to our community. We will continue to look at ways that we can protect our community with our communicable disease encounters and also the immunizations in which we're doing at our health departments in both Murfreesboro and Smyrna. Moving forward to our COVID-19 updates, starting tomorrow when the website refreshes between 3 and 4 p.m., the Tennessee Department of Health will no longer report active or inactive or recovered cases. These variables will be dropped from the county data snapshots and the downloadable data sets. The Tennessee Department of Health continues to transition COVID-19 activities from an emergency response to routine public health surveillance. As measures of disease transmission and severity and community burden change, the active case metrics become unreliable indicator of the number of people potentially infected with COVID-19 in our county. The Tennessee Department of Health is removing the active and inactive and recovered cases from the COVID-19 reporting metrics. This reporting change took effect on April 24th. To view the downloadable active and inactive recovered sets, you can go to tn.gov and look under Archive Data Sets. As far as testing goes, the Rutherford County Health Department will still be conducting testing at the 100 West Burton location here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Once again, symptoms are not requirement to get a testing. Starting this Monday, May the 2nd, staff-administered PCR tests will only be available on Fridays from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. at our Murfreesboro location, by appointment only. Individuals wishing to be tested can call 615-898-7880, which is our Murfreesboro Health Department's number. Once again, that number is 615-898-7880 to schedule an appointment to be tested on Fridays only from 3 to 4 p.m., as we will be taking back over control of all of our testing and allowing for our contract staff to return to their normal business. Self-administered rapid tests for individuals to come pick up will continue to be available Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 12. Additionally, we will also provide these self-administered tests at our Smyrna Health Department as well. So anyone wishing to come pick up a test and to take it home can complete that Monday through Friday, from 8 to 4:30 while the supplies last. Additionally, there are additional testing sites here located in our county, and individuals can go to covid19.tn.gov/testing sites to locate additional testing. Over the past 7 days, our numbers do tend to stay steady. We've been averaging about a 4.4% positivity rate, which is great compared to where we were a couple of months ago. As far as vaccinations, we will continue to offer the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine for first, second, and booster doses Monday through Friday, and we have actually extended our walk-in hours to include 8:30 to 10, and 1 to 3. Monday through Friday at our Rutherford County Health Department located here in Murfreesboro. Once again, those walk-in hours are 8:30 to 10 and 1 to 3. Roughly right now in our county, we have about 57 to 59% of individuals who have been fully vaccinated, and our numbers for those who have received a booster dose is about 20%. At this time, that does conclude my report. Are there any questions?
I have one question. It's uncommunicable disease, but not COVID. I kind of follow the tuberculosis trend, and I noticed that we're over 100 more this month for March than we were this time last year. And if the trend continues, we'll be over 400 more cases of TB for the year than we had last year. Is there any insight into that?
I think a lot of that is also contributing to the growth that we're experiencing here in our county. Additionally, we are providing services to anyone who presents with TB here in our county, and so we have an amazing staff that has stepped up to the plate, and we hopefully will be hiring someone else on board to be able to help with our TB in our county as well.
But we really don't know exactly where this is all coming from. And,
No, sir, not at this time.
and so on. As far as, I mean, TB is an old disease, but still very much around and very communicable.
Yes, sir. So that's something that we definitely will be looking at in the Tennessee Department of Health, and I know our regional office staff has been looking at those numbers and trying to assess that, but as of right now, it's just too early to tell where it is actually coming from.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let me have one follow-up quickly, Director Dixon. So we know a lot of these numbers can be suppressed because of COVID. So is that something that you can just maybe look back the last few years and report back to us and see if you're seeing an actual increase or if it's just getting back to the numbers are more level? That'd just be good to know.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Commissioner Blair?
Are you familiar with the tablet that the White House is promoting right now? It's kind of like a Theraflu or maybe the infusion process. They're saying within the first couple of days to take a pill, if you will. Are you to go along with the testing? Are you familiar with that process at all?
So we actually have a leadership meeting scheduled tomorrow. So it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that we'll be learning more about that, in addition to additional tablets and or pills that are actually going to be offered for COVID-19. So I will bring that back to our next meeting as well.
Is there some way you can bring it to us?
Yes, sir.
Kind of summary at your convenience?
Yes, sir, I definitely will. Thank you.
Any additional questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve the report.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much. I just have one follow-up question. This is not about your report. Have you heard from the state health department if they're going to replace Dr. Mack or not? I know there was some discussion about whether it would be a nurse or nurse practitioner or what they were going to do.
So currently, there has not been much discussion in regards to us replacing Dr. Mack at this time. They are looking into it. Of course, it's all budget season right now, so everyone is fully invested in the budget, but there's something that we definitely want to make sure that we can either have a doctor back on staff or a nurse practitioner, and so there will be another discussion that we'll be having hopefully this week as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, community care. Mayor, you got anything for us?
We do. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And tonight might be a little bit longer because we got several things we want to discuss with the committee. So members, at the last board meeting, we met and we discussed Garver Construction Company. Garver Construction Company was the company that was picked through the PBA, and they went to work on phase 1. If you recall, we acquired a loan from Christie Houston Foundation to do phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Because of COVID, they were limited in getting access to the nursing home because everything was shut down. We locked the whole nursing home down like any other medical facility for a period of time. And during that period of time, I believe that, I'm not speaking, but this is just my own summation, that Mr. Garver lost a lot of his subcontractors who was going to do, because there was no structural work. This was all cosmetic, new flooring, new walls, wallpaper, new sinks, nothing, no structural walls being moved or anything. And it's been 2.5 years, and he just completed phase 1. So the board felt it was best to look for another contractor, and so we had Mr. Cope there. the nursing home facility and Evan Cope. And based on the contract that we had, there was an out clause which allowed CCRC to give notice, and we would pay Garver Construction out of Gallatin whatever was owed them, if they had bought extra whatever, to start on phase 2, that we would reimburse them after they delivered those supplies to us. That motion was made and carried, and so the current architect and Mr. Zach, David Zach, who works for the company that is managing the nursing facility, United Church Homes. They have a contractor that actually has an office in Nashville. They're a national type concern, and they have expressed an interest, and I think we should know within the next week or so if they're willing to come in and pick up where Mr. Garver's firm left off and continue phase 2 and phase 3. So we'll wait and see within the next week or so. Second thing to bring to your attention was we've been working on this for quite some time. Probably the last couple of years we've been working on it, and that is, we have a daycare facility on the premises that's been out there for a long period of time. It's in a double wide structure with the playground adjacent to it. 2 years ago, we wanted to start looking at building a permanent structure back on the pad where one of the wings were that came out the back of G Community. And so we went with Johnson Bailey Architects, who was the last architect that worked on the last building phase at the nursing home. They've been working on architectural renderings, et cetera, and the board decided to move forward on building the the daycare facility. This will be the first daycare facility that operates 24/7 for all 3 shifts. And it will be licensed. Right now we're licensed up to 25 children. This will be licensed up to 125. So it will provide affordable daycare for all of our county employees, who are especially those in the working shifts, like our EMS, fire and rescue, sheriff's department, et cetera. They'll have some place to take their children. It will also be a certified tornado shelter and part of the building where the children will be able to go. So we were looking at how to finance this, and with the help of United Church Homes and their accounting department, we feel like that the nursing home, it won't be anything that the county government, because we do own all the buildings, we own the property that CCRC sits on, but the board wanted to take this on themselves. They feel like that this can be done. It will start being profitable. They estimate within 2 years. So we reached out to an old relationship that I'd established several years ago, Kevin Krasinski. He's now with the Tennessee County Services Loan Program. He came to our last meeting. We were looking at using them through the Tennessee Municipal Bond Forum and Tennessee County Services Loan Program. And they're willing to assist us in obtaining a fixed rate financing on this building. $4 million estimated cost on the building. And we were looking at a 10-year, 15-year loan. And if you will, it's on your SharePoint. Let me get over to that real quick. We're looking at issuance rate, a fixed rate for issuance of the loan at a 0.60 percentage points. We're looking at a 15-year loan for the $4 million. It will be set up, the rate that they have given us is 2.186, which is a very, very attractable rate because it is a government entity. It'll be set up on a 3-year draw, no prepayment penalty if we decide to pay it off early. And the committee wanted to end the motion to give this to the PBA. So the Public Building Authority, I carried that message to the last PBA. Chairman Vaught of the PBA and their committee accepted it as one of their next projects. So, but in order for all that to happen, we still need to go through the full commission, and wanted to start here and take it to property management, then to budget, and then to the full commission for authorizing CCRC board to move forward on acquiring the loan and building this building on their property. Once it's built, it will be our building, the county's building.
So the
Questions?
county would be out no money?
That's
This is all entirely a loan
Yes, sir.
that the board would take out with Tennessee County Services loan program
Yes, sir.
and pay back via the revenues generated from the facility?
Yes, sir. We feel like that based on, we did a survey, we had Sonia at HR to do a survey of all of our county employees. And the survey came back, we had over 346 employees that said that they would very much be interested in utilizing this facility. So we feel like out of 346, that with only 125 slots, we feel like with proper advertisement, we'll be full, the first, when we open the doors. We feel like that the property is free. All we got to do is build the building. On the county's property, we have a stainless steel kitchen there. Chefs come in at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting ready for the meals for the patients at the nursing facility for breakfast. And then same cooks will be there for cooking meals and preparing meals for the second and third shifts. So we see this as an opportunity for employee retention throughout the county, and we also see it as a opportunity for employee recruitment. The Sheriff's Department, the EMS, or anybody can say, hey, we have an affordable daycare provided to you by the county. Yeah, it's not free, but it's going to be affordable for you.
Commissioner Key?
So this is a great idea. I commend them or you guys for looking at it as an opportunity. However, this unit, this facility will be at the far south end of Rutherford County. Are there plans, or are there in the works or thinking about perhaps something in the north end? I would think this would fill up very quickly and be profitable as well. But has that been mentioned yet, or is this one of only one, or?
Well, we were approached a couple of years ago by United Way and the Boys and Girls Club, even in Smyrna, because they said that there's such a need for affordable daycare, and you're starting to see the private sector corporations beginning to, as we transition out of COVID, they're looking for other ways to do something similar to this. I know the school board, it was in the paper just at their last retreat down at one of the state parks. They came back and said they were looking at that, but they were unaware that we were already moving in that direction. It has been talked about, but that's as far as we've gone. I know Commissioner Cook, she's interested, once we get this up and going, she would be interested in adult daycare opportunities as well. Because a lot of families really don't have the financial wherewithal to put somebody into Adams Place. But if they had some place to just keep them during the daytime, they'll come get them and take them back home. So those are all options that the nursing home is looking at. The nursing home staff actually came up with a name, and it's called Generations Connected. Because right now, with the daycare facility we have out there, they put some of the toddlers in double-decker strollers and take them into the nursing facility, and you can see the elderly patients just light up, and they come over in their wheelchairs and just want to touch their hair or, touch their skin, or, little kids, and the kids love it too, because it kind of reminds them of their grandparents or something, and they create a bond. So that's why they call it Generations Connected, right? Commissioner Cook, any comments? And of course, Mr. Boder is our finance chairman of the committee.
The children have a wagon, it looks like a train, and they cry to go over to see the grandparents at the nursing home. So it's really helpful for them to learn to get along with the elderly, and elderly get along with them.
Are there any other questions?
Madam Chairman, I'll need a motion to move forward for approval of allowing CCRC board to enter into that, take out the loan, then we'll take it to
Budget.
property management and then full budget and full commission.
And, is there a second? Okay. And then I just had one question, Mayor. So
Yes.
in the event that we have trouble staffing this because I haven't seen the business model, the numbers that you've run, and you said that we felt like we'd be profitable at, I think, what you said, year 2, year 3?
Year 2.
In the event that we do struggle for any reason, who makes that payment? Who makes the note?
CCRC.
Okay, so everything's under their name?
Yeah, and Doug, we've got a little over $4 million in our rainy day fund. Is that correct?
Thank you.
It's not like it was back in the 90s. Nursing homes struggled, and it's on solid footing right now.
You have a question, Commissioner Blair? No? Okay.
Thought you'd have to take a roll call.
Yes, she will. Very good. Give us a roll call.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Chairman Allen.
Yes, thank you. Advance it.
Property management, that's correct.
Good, all right. Ms. Jolly, special projects. Welcome.
I have actually made some changes to the report this time. I've added all the 5 high school additions to the budget: Riverdale, Smyrna, Laverne, Blackman, and Oakland. I've made the budget amendments, moving the money from Laverne Middle and Plainview and from the future secondary and the land to these. So we ended up with $1,100,000 in Riverdale, $1,100,000 in Smyrna, $88,970 in Laverne, and $12,500 in Oakland. And then the future elementary school, $2,299,376.
Y'all have had this since last week. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jolly. All right, school board. Welcome.
Mr. Spurlock's at teacher retirement banquet tonight, so you have the second string. going to go through the budget amendment items on the agenda, and then, of course, discuss, the Board of Education voted on the upcoming fiscal year budgets, and we'll talk about that as much as this board wants. Also, Mr. Lee is here tonight. If there's questions on the 5-year building program, Mr. Lee's come along to answer questions on that as it goes between operating to building and capital needs. From what I'll go ahead and just go through these first two amendments first. We have two amendments tonight for your consideration in the General Purpose School Fund. The first budget amendment before you requests funding for an additional $1,000 for each full-time employee and an additional $500 to each part-time employee of Rutherford County School System that is paid from the General Purpose School Fund to be paid at the end of the current school year to compensate for the additional duties assigned to our current school staff due to low staffing levels as well as the Delta and Omicron variants of COVID-19. Funding for this will come from a portion of local option sales tax that has been collected over the current fiscal year revenue budget projections. A separate similar amendment will be prepared for employees paid from the school nutrition fund for this additional duty pay, and that funding will come from USDA funds. And an ESSER 3.0 amendment will be prepared for RCS employees paid from the Federal Projects Fund, which is federal funds as well. This additional payment is contingent on all of the following stipulations being met by the school employees. The employee must be a current full-time or part-time, not PRN or as needed, RCS classified or certified employee, or be hired as such no later than January 4th of the current school year, the beginning of this current semester. The employee cannot have a break in employment with RCS between January 4th, 2022 and May 27th, 2022, which is the end of the school year, in order to receive 100% of the additional pay. The employee remains on active employee status during this time period between January 4th through May 27th. Is available for and reporting for duty as assigned by RCS unless having an excused absence and unpaid leave. So the recommendation on this is to authorize an additional $1,000 per RCS for full-time employee and $500 per RCS part-time employee as detailed above to compensate for additional duties brought about during the current school year by low staffing levels as well as by the Delta and Omicron variants of COVID-19 for a total increased expenditure cost in the GPS fund of $6,094,620 for the GPS fund employees.
Any questions? Commissioner Gurley?
Yes, I want to make sure I'm clear on where the funding is coming from. Is this money that has already been appropriated?
No, sir. What this is the funding. We could do this one of two ways. Is we could have gone through and I could try to estimate. Okay, this line item will be under this much on the expenditure side because of the vacancy. We've had substantial amounts of openings, for teachers and classified employees and some line items. The same happened last year. What I put here is we set the sales tax very conservatively because we were just coming out of last year of a variant, and then there was already stuff on the horizon with the Delta variant. So at the request of the commission and the board, we budgeted conservatively. We have collected well over our budget for sales tax this current fiscal year. Typically in June, I work with Lisa Nolan and we do an amendment to bring those collections up to, the budget up to the actual collections.
Normally you bring those numbers, that money forward into the...
And then it rolls into fund balance. You're correct.
Right, into fund balance. So in essence, we're taking this money from unassigned fund balance in essence?
No, sir. No. It's
money that would be an unassigned fund balance, right?
Money that would be an unassigned fund balance because of a shortage of staff, that the staff that's currently here has to pick up that additional duties because of short staffing.
Commissioner Gurley, I had the exact same question, and this is the situation. We can either increase the revenue, acknowledge the revenue that's there, that has already been paid, and do it this way. It's not going to change ending fund balance because he could either take this money from salaries, surplus salaries, from positions that have not been filled, but that's going to require a lot more effort on their part at an important budget time. They just simply don't have the time to go through and pick out each individual one. So it was really a convenience factor.
Right, I'm just trying to make public
Yes.
where the money's coming from and where the money's going to.
Right. So
So it's money that, I understand that, it's still money that if we didn't spend it on this, would go eventually into unassigned fund balance.
Right, just like the money we're not spending on salaries is going into unassigned fund balance.
Right.
It's just
So-
two different pockets.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get clarification on everything.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? I entertain. Thank you.
Quick question.
Okay.
A quick question, Doug. So this is before tax, and you're considering a bonus, correct?
This is, say that again, I'm sorry.
Before tax bonus?
What this will be a taxable bonus. This
Okay.
will be a taxable. So,
Yes, sir.
so this just like our last one, what it would be is it would be, if you're a full-time employee, you'd get the 1,000 gross, and then from that, of course, is
Right.
FICA and then we deduct the pension.
So to the employee, they're seeing this as a bonus, a goodwill bonus.
We'll treat it, I hate to use the word bonus because under the IRS, they want
That's right.
additional, because this is styled as just like it is. They've had to pick up additional duties because of the staff shortage plus all the additional duties brought on by COVID. So we're treating it very similar to the first $1,000 that we did through ESSER funds at the beginning of the year. The only difference is it'd be local funding that's not been expended because of the staff shortages.
Using the word bonus triggers additional tax.
That's correct. So payment for additional duties.
Had a motion and a second. Will you call the roll for us?
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Chairman Allen.
Yes.
On the second budget amendment, this is a similar amendment to what this body saw around this time last year. This amendment to budget for Rutherford County Schools Summer Learning and Summer Bridge Camp. On January 22nd, 2021, the Tennessee General Assembly enacted the Tennessee Learning Loss Remediation and Student Acceleration Act, Senate Bill 7002, House Bill 7004 last year, to address the learning loss of students due to the COVID-19 related school closures. Through the new law, all school districts in Tennessee are required to offer learning loss remediation summer programs for students in grades K through 8 starting in summer 2021. This, of course, this is for the summer camp 2022. This GPS fund amendment is to budget $5,738,667 in state and federal funding for the operations of this state-mandated summer camp for the summer of 2022. The camp will host over 4,200 RCS K-8 students during the month of June at 13 school sites and include funding for camp staff salaries, SRO and crossing guards, and transportation of students. Funding for student nutrition services is in a separate budget amendment in the school cafeteria fund, and funding for the high school summer credit recovery school, along with the non-payroll items for the K-8 summer camps, will be accounted for in the federal projects fund utilizing ESSER 3 and IDEA funds. Recommended motion is to amend the general purpose school fund budget as presented for a total amount of $5,738,667 for the operations of the 2022 RCS Summer Learning and Summer Bridge Camps to comply with Tennessee Learning Loss Remediation and Student Acceleration Act. Funding for this amendment will be 100% derived from other state education funds. just like last year. This is going to state, the majority of this funding is state funds, but because it's got state funding in there, it, just like last year, this has to go through the general purpose school fund, not the federal projects. Thus the reason for this amendment.
Any questions?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Key? Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chairman Allen?
Thank you.
Moving on.
Yep, moving on.
All right. We're going to discuss one tonight with the general purpose school fund and the other two school budgets with, or funds with a budget. We're going to discuss the expenditure side of that budget with you, the additions, the growth of that. We do not have the detailed budget because while the board has approved it, what they approved did not include the BEP revenue estimates, because even though the state is supposed to have the April BEP estimate, which is well over 50% of our revenue budget by April 6th, just like last year when the board approved this on April 21st, we still do not, to this day, I still do not have the April estimates from the state. They told me that more than likely this Friday they should have it, if not, maybe next week. The plan, just like last year, as you remember, the BOE approved a budget. We finally got our revenues in from the state. We went back to the board adjusted some items, and then it came to you in Health and Ed. So that, for this year, is the plan again. Next year, after pulling the private act, spoke with Ms. Allen, after pulling the private act that deals with budgeting for Rutherford County, I noticed that the private act actually states that the BOE's budget needs to be delivered to the county finance department for consolidation in the other funds on May 15th. We've had a practice for several years of doing it earlier. You know, I got the approved budget, the details, up to Ms. Nolan's office this Monday. In next year going forward, if we can pull that back to say that meeting that the BOE had last Thursday, to do that more like May 13th, that brings in all these revenue numbers from the state. We have the board then has a better picture of this is what my revenue actually is, and they can make better decisions on the expenditure side.
Our joint meeting is the 20-something now, right?
That's
24th.
right.
24th.
So our private act says we're supposed to be doing it by the 15th, right, so to speak. But I'm not sure that we'll have our regular budget, the rest of that, done by that time either, since the school budget is 3/4 of our regular budget and it's got to be incorporated in. So maybe we need to go back and amend our private act next year to be more realistic, to set some time in, say, June the 1st or 7th or something another that's more realistic with the way things flow from the state and everything, to make it legal but make it real, and where we can do that. So in essence, this is information for us to look at between now and our May meeting and to get an idea of what's coming. So this 102 is additional personnel?
We're going to go through that here in just a minute, Mr. Hurley. Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're going to go through all those for you. We will go through that tonight with you in detail.
I mean, I can read it.
Yes, sir. That'll be the certified growth positions. Then the next thing will be the classified.
Right.
That budget contains that budget contains 182 growth positions, and we're going to go through that with you, and that way tonight you can ask questions on these growth positions. And like I said, I brought Dr. Sullivan with me tonight. But before we jump into that, let me go ahead and just give you the synopsis of the overview of this. it is as it stands right now, there is, I have budgeted very conservatively $449,623,780 in revenues for the general purpose school fund. What you have before you with those improvements, in additions to the budget, is budgeted expenditures of $494,372,689,000. That has a fund balance deficit of $44,748,909. I expect that to be able to come down significantly once we do several items that are going to happen by the next time we have this in front of the board later in May, once we get our state revenue numbers and also some information from some grant funding. So I told the board the same thing. I don't want people to be alarmed with that deficit, simply because, just like last year, it looked the same way when we were going in because we didn't have the state funding numbers yet. It's like when Mr. Gurley said this might be an idea just to bring it back a little bit further with this size of a budget so we can get our revenue. So our board, the board, I noticed a couple of our board members expressed that, it would be nice to be able to have those revenue numbers tight, which we cannot. I mean, the date that our board voted on their budget was the same day the state General Assembly was voting on the state budget with the BEP funding. So on this right here, if you'd like, we'll go through these. I'll give this. I want to introduce to you Dr. Sullivan. Dr. Sullivan's over instruction, and as I work closely with him on the operation side with instruction as we develop this budget. And I want Dr. Sullivan, he's going to let you basically give you an overview of what's driving the growth needs in this budget as we work together through this. And of course, looking at, the growth in our district, and not just the growth, but what made up that growth, the demographics. If there could be a title to this budget, it would be ESL and SPED. And as we go through these requests, you'll see that it's like what's the two main things that are driving this is the ESL and the SPED growth of our student population. So I'll let Dr. Sullivan give the high points of what we've seen in growth this year.
Thank you, Mr. Bodery, Commissioners, Mayor. I appreciate you guys having us this afternoon. Just a couple quick points. I feel like it's essential you guys have the numbers of truly what we've experienced student growth-wise. So this came out of our student information system today. Year to date, so kindergarten through fifth graders, as of today, we have 18,312 kindergarten through fifth graders. We started the year on August 6th with 17,470. So we have added 842 kindergarten through fifth grade net gain students since August 6th. Middle school, as of today, we have 13,024. We started the year with 12,491, so we've added 533 net students. And then in high school, 9 through 12, we started the year with 17,722, and we are now at 17,722, and we started the year at 17,466, and so that's a net of 256. Altogether, even year to date, from April 26th of 21 until April 26th of today, we've gone from 47,145 students to, as of today, just kindergarten through 12th, we're at 49,058. We also support pre-K. Yeah, 49,058 as of today. 58 students. So since April 26th of last year, we have gained 1,913 students. A big portion of that, and this is where, as Mr. Bodery mentioned about growth, our students larger are coming to us, of course, all across the county, but we have English language learners. When we add our ELs or our ESL students, ESL students require a general classroom teacher. If you're looking at the elementary level, they're going to need a second grade teacher. In middle school, they're going to need your math, science, English, social studies, high school, all their specific courses. But they are also required to have at least 60 minutes of ESL every single day. We have added since August 6th, 1,252 ESL students. And so more than 50% of our student enrollment gain have been in EL students. So that has definitely been a huge burden for our district as we're looking at growth as well. Another area that you are going to see as part of our budget involves textbooks. Textbooks this coming year, we have a math adoption. This last school year, we did not have an adoption, so when we don't necessarily have a big adoption, we don't have a big expense. One of the things as a school district we are required to do is provide a hard copy textbook for every student. BEP gives you $81 per student per textbook. Our last big adoption, English Language Arts, we had about $140 was our average expenditure, so you're looking at a $60 deficit per student. When we are looking at over 49,000 kids, we very quickly hit $8 to $9 million just strictly on one textbook adoption for our students. So those things together, yes, the budget is large. As always, appreciate the support that we get. It's very generous, but that is part of the reason that we have you have the growth, and then you have a year of math textbooks as well. What Mr. Buttery is giving you guys before you is just an idea of certified personnel to show you kind of where these numbers come from. One of our things we do every single year, and our board has this information as well, every month, we do a growth report and a staffing report. Our principals and attendance secretaries submit to us how many students they have in each grade level, how many teachers they have in each grade level, and then we have this report every single month. Over the last year, we've actually transferred 37 teaching positions to try to save as much money as possible to keep from having to ask for new positions. But when it becomes a point of we are truly just about out of positions to transfer, sure, we could probably transfer an elementary school teacher because we don't have that number right now, but then a first grade class is coming up and we'd have to add it back the next year. And that's where we get to, you'll see our elementary teachers on that budget improvements that Mr. Buttery gave out. I think we have asked for 12.5 for elementary. You see middle was 5. We were actually able to save 4 or 5 of those positions by transferring from other middle schools. That was one just right off the top of our head. We were able to transfer 5 positions from another middle school to Rockville Middle, which of course is growing leaps and bounds. You have all of those as well. Our virtual school, we used with ESSER fundings for a year to see if we would have steady enrollment. We didn't want to bring that on the taxpayers as an initial burden until we knew that enrollment would hold. Enrollment has held, and we've actually capped it at 450 for this next year until we see incoming enrollment, just because of expense. Our elementary and middle, we have our own teachers for the virtual school. For high school, we have that subcontracted out. So you see 11 positions from ESSER to GPS from virtual school. ESL is the next one. You'll see it's a 1 to 35 ratio, and when we have added over 1,200, that very quickly goes through those positions very quickly, as well as having those students needing traditional core content areas as well. We have fine arts, CTE, special education is the other issue. If you have talked to any educator recently, you will probably hear quite a bit about different student needs and the extreme needs that some of our students are moving to us with that they have not had in the past. And that is very much evidenced in our budget. We have schools that are having to have extra staff to deal with very high-need students, which does come with extra funding. And if we look at the TISA bill that potentially may go through, that would provide us extra funding to be able to support our growing English second language and our special education students as well. And so we're kind of in that stopgap year or 2 years, if you will, until that kind of goes through fruition. We go through with special education being an area, again, as a concern that we're seeing a lot of growth with. Growth with school counselors, graduation coaches. We looked for administrative positions as well, trying to keep those to a minimum. Our school board recognized that. And then as we move over into some of the other ones, Mr. Buttery, do you want me to get into classified as well? Okay. If you'll flip over the second page, kind of goes to classified, and then I'll let you guys just kind of ask some questions as well. We have ESL educational assistants. We go through with a growth library, Plainview Elementary. We strictly stick to BEP funding. They have hit over 450 students, so they now qualify to have a library EA with them, or library assistant. The SPED and behavioral EAs is where we are seeing the biggest growth. We have students that move to us, not just from within our own district in our own county, but Metro Nashville specifically. When a student moves in with an IEP, an individualized education plan with special education, if they have a one-on-one already identified, we basically have just a few days that we have to have an IEP meeting and then determine if that plan is what's needed. We are looking at staffing one of those people at each school so that we aren't necessarily giving 3 one-on-one assistance to, let's just say, Buchanan Elementary School because they had 3 students move in. We need to have a placeholder there for somebody for we can actually see whether or not they need 3 positions, just because Metro Nashville, I'll just throw it out there. They moved from Metro Nashville to one-on-one, and we are expecting, the parents expect us to fill that, and so we're looking to see it at one school, can we just have one person that can handle that till we see if it's needed. As you move forward, you see SPED bus attendants. We hear a lot of our English as a second language. It is not just Hispanic and Latino. Arabic, as you're probably very familiar with, we're having a lot of growth in that area as well, and Arabic interpreter, especially for special education. And that kind of gets us through the classified instructional areas. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. We can answer any of them, especially elementary. For example, if we looked like at, I'll give you Blackman Elementary. They're one of our growth positions we asked for. We looked at their average has to be 1 to 20, and they're at 20.36 because they added 47 students. So we truly do it down to the number to be as transparent as possible.
Any questions? Commissioner Blue?
A few years ago, autism and the way it was coming, the way it was growing, that issue, there was great concern. Has that continued to grow the way it was expected or
Absolutely.
predicted?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have a percentage of students that suffer?
Not with autism specifically, I can find that for sure. I know as a district, we are somewhere between 9.5% and 9.75% of all of our students are identified with some type of learning disability with an IEP, which is actually about 4% lower, 3.5% lower than the state average. But still, when you're looking at 1 of every 10 students is served with an IEP, that's definitely cause for alarm. Yeah.
You might want to touch on
Yeah. Yeah.
that's such a large number.
Yeah, and again, with the 51 I mentioned, that is such a large classified EA position. That again goes to a lot of those one-on-one assistants that we are looking at. The other part goes to assigning each one of our elementary schools. Right now, there is not an alternative setting for elementary school students. We have elementary school we have alternative school, excuse me, for 6th through 12th grade. There, you are actually allowed to put students 1st through 12th grade in an alternative setting, but we know that if we were to try to open another facility, 1, we don't necessarily have the room to open an alternative school for elementary. 2nd, that would bring an additional cost that we are looking at for an additional school. So we're looking at putting that one person at our elementary schools to be able to hopefully handle some of those behavioral issues as well that, again, usually come into place with that one-on-one with special education, unfortunately.
Any questions? Commissioner Phillips?
1,900 new students. You know that these are new students, and they've come in recently. Do you know where they come from?
Yes, sir, I can find that for you. I know that I asked, most of them are either, of course, a big portion of that's going to be Murfreesboro City when they move from 6th grade into 7th grade, or even our 5th grade into 6th grade. That's a huge portion. Just as big of a portion as out of state. We are running numbers. I asked for a couple weeks, but each one has to be hand counted to see what states are the biggest, but it is absolutely coming from out of state as well.
I'm not sure it matters, but it would be interesting for us to know where these new kids are coming from. They're coming from out of the country or in the country from another state. It'd just be interesting for us to kind of look at where they're coming from and what we can expect in the future.
Absolutely, and I will tell you one of the areas that is growing the most with our English as a second language students. It's unexpected. We always hear about Smyrna, Laverne, some of those schools, but actually Stewart's Creek High School, middle school, and elementary school is where our largest enrollment has changed. Stewart's Creek High School just in the last couple of years has gone from 2 or 3 ESL teachers to now needing 5, 6, and probably an additional one just because they are adding English as second language students, if not daily, every other day. They're very large increase.
Good, thank you. Any additional questions? Doug, did you want to talk about any of the other positions on that second page?
Yes, ma'am. We have the outside of instruction. Of course, the vast majority of these requests this year is certified staff, in the classroom or in a support position for the classroom, mainly with, as Dr. Sullivan said, with ESL or SPED. The other items that we have here for growth, we have 3 insurance benefit specialists and 1 insurance lead specialist. This is with the BOE transitioning in January to the state health plans. Of course, that our school HR department would begin the role as what's called an agency benefit coordinator. The state of Tennessee manages their health plans, but they require a person on the ground with the LEA to help with enrollment, onboarding, and changes in plans with, if a person gets married, if they get divorced, if they have a child, as they leave, that agency benefit coordinator, they would be working with the employees to make those changes. The state recommended for a size of our system a minimum of 4, so we have 4. We checked with Knox County. They had a couple more than that, but we believe, after working with the state, we believe we'll start out with 4 because, frankly, we're better than Knox County. But we'll take that recommendation, and we have that with comparable salaries with the risk management side here. We have a growth paralegal position. This is, once again, with an increased volume. The paralegal is to investigate, I believe it's Title IX investigation. This is something, once again, trying to comply with federal requirements and state. The HR certified employee analyst, that's another position in HR that's coming out of, once again, coordinating with all the new teachers that we have, making sure they have certifications, making sure they meet their licensure requirements. That's just the back office need. You see a request for 3 LPNs. That's to assist with the large comprehensive high schools. As those high schools have grown in size, of course, you have more special needs, you have more children that are needing to see a nurse. Instead of just bringing additional RNs on, we thought it would be more cost effective to follow the model of bringing an LPN to work with the existing RN at each of those school sites to help with that additional caseload. Those 3 LPNs would be shared, so they would be split probably by like 6 schools. They would work half a day at each of those schools to help those existing RNs with the extra duties, extra load from the increased student load. Down in maintenance, we have requests for growth because of the additional needs in the district of just 2 level 6 maintenance techs, 2 level 5 maintenance techs, helpers for the growth. And also we have requests for 2 level 4 HVAC, and it says PM, that preventative maintenance HVAC. We had 2 that the board requested and the commission approved the funding for. We had 2 of these folks get brought on this year, and these other 2 will complement those. To basically, their task is to go out and go through on the HVAC maintenance for all of our sites to check to make sure filters are changed out correctly, and not only that, but also to make sure if there is preventive maintenance, like things need to be oiled, a belt needs to be changed, things like that, that once again, you get on the front end of the HVAC right now, a small maintenance issue could, preventive maintenance issue could, keep off a large, cost of something that wasn't maintained. So that's what these gentlemen are focused on. We also have 3 IT techs that are moving from ESSER 3 funding coming on that we funded their first year. This is when as we added more and more technology through COVID, and of course that was also just a goal with the district to bring more technology in for our students. Obviously that brings about a need for more techs to service those computers. And we funded the first year with ESSER 3 funding. Now we're moving them on to the GP fund. You see below on the transportation, or I'm sorry, before we get that, the bus contract, if you notice there is one item down there, it's a $1,000 annual stipend for hard-to-staff SPED EAs. Just like all the surrounding districts, we have significant issues with recruiting and retaining special education EAs. We have regular EAs, and then we have, of course, our SPED EAs that work with our special needs students. Sometimes those special needs students have additional needs that, require additional duties. And so to notice that and to try to recruit and retain those, we're going to have a $1,000 annual stipend for them, and with the requirements of we recruit you and you're on the payroll by, I believe it's around the beginning of October, and you stay with us through the school year. Very similar to what you gentlemen just approved and lady just approved. This would be an annual recurring, but if there was hard times, there was always something that could be adjusted. So we thought that would be very fair and also be a way to be able to attract some of those very hard to fill positions. Below the transportation, you see based on increased volume, we're requesting 7 new regular routes for our bus contractors and also 6 new growth routes for special education. You see below there's a 3% increase for the rate change, but please note, not only is there a 3% rate change, we added additional funding because based on the approved contract for the bus contractors, there is a fuel adjustment for when their diesel goes over a certain rate, which it is now. And so I put a conservative but realistic estimate in next year for that diesel. And I think anybody that deals with construction right now can tell you that a lot of the delivery for rock comes with a price fuel adjustment on it now because just where we're at with fuel. So maybe it'll go down, but I don't want to say that and not have this in the budget.
Any questions for Doug?
What's that, ma'am?
Ask if they had any questions. Okay.
Once again, my game plan is to have an amended budget for next fiscal year. Once we get our BEP funds, have that before our school board, have them to vote on that before this body meets again at the end of May. I would like to set up probably at the end of the second or third week of May. So any county commissioner that would like, just like last year, could come in and we could have a one-on-one where you can go through the budget in detail. I will have a detailed budget variance. Any line item over $50,000 or 5% variance, I'll have an explanation for why that moved. And that will be at least about a week and a half out before this joint meeting. So any county commissioner that has a question can ask that and get an answer. That way we don't have a marathon meeting at the thing. I want everybody to get, just like last year, I just want everybody to get all the information they need on this.
I think so too. Okay, so the joint meeting is May the 24th.
That's
We will do
correct.
it in this room. We did it, in years past, we have done it over at the school board, and then last year we moved it here. It's just that we can accommodate more folks. It's more easier to secure this building, so we're just going to have it over here. So it will be between schools, health and ed, and the budget committee.
And the school board plans to, I believe, I just spoke with the chairman, they'll have their meeting to vote on the amendments before, the night before. So any commissioner's welcome. But once again, well over a week and a half before that, because the board, on the expenditure side, this is going to change very slightly, I believe. It's the revenue side, plus, when I say slightly, it'll be, like I said, one thing that we're looking at, a large item to bring down in the expenditure side of this budget is, as Dr. Sullivan talked about, the textbooks, 12 million. And once again, it falls on, it varies from year if there's an adoption or not. And I'm definitely not going to leave multi-million dollars in a budget that we don't need, so we adjust that accordingly each year. We're looking at a few million. If it can get approved through ESSER funds, we could move that out of this budget. And if we get word that that's going to be approved in the next couple of weeks, that will be removed from the budget before the board has the vote. Also see that with current year BP growth, I just got my first part of the BP growth for this year. I'll bring a cleanup budget amendment, and that will include taking a couple more $1 million of that textbook, that one-time expenditure, out. So this board could consider voting that in this current year budget with growth funds from the state. That means that can be removed from this proposed next year's budget, which once again continues to bring this budgeted deficit down, hopefully to more manageable. Because once again, as Mr. Gurley and y'all stated, it's not just this year. I look out. What about next year? Sir?
Trey, did you have anything to share with us on buildings?
I just thought I'd throw a couple of things out there quickly on the 5-year building plan. Everybody's talking about the projects that are where their priority is and where we're going. I met with the architect this week. Our intent, he's supposed to have me a design schedule this week to give us an idea how long the design portion of it's going to take. Of course, Oakland and Riverdale will take a little bit longer because they're in the city limits of Murfreesboro, and their process is pretty lengthy. We don't have that issue any Smyrna, Laverne, Eagle out in the county, but just in city limits of Murfreesboro. Based on where we are, we're looking at probably August 24th for an opening. The original 5-year was looking at December of 23, but that was based on getting started in January, and we're in May. So that's going to be adjusted. But everybody's focused on cost and trying to get 3 projects. We're going to do everything in our power to keep what is designed as minimal as possible. Met with a couple of school board members, and they're adamant on the 2,500 student cap, and I'm very well aware of that. They see some of the numbers of classrooms, and I've done various breakdowns for them on how many additional students at each school, additional classrooms are required. Then we have to take into account the number of portable classrooms that are already in use. And then there's going to be some interior renovation where we're going to take some classrooms away to do some other renovation for guidance counselors and various things. I'm going to keep these additions to as minimal square footage as possible. That's where we're going to save our money. Get to 2,500 students, but keep it as minimal as possible. We're also meeting. We'll begin scheduling meetings again with the principals to look at their programs and what they need, whether it's CTE or arts, food service, art classrooms, science classrooms. We'll be going back over that again to make sure that if we need 6, we don't have 7. All in an effort to keep the price down as much as possible. That's how we're going to get multiple projects this year. The board has recently added that they would like to see what it would cost to include an auditorium, a new auditorium at Oakland or Riverdale. That will add cost. So when they add, I'm trying to find a way to counteract it with a reduction somewhere. We'll try and stay as close to these budgets as we can. As we've always done, what's approved is funding. We will get the projects finished. We will put them out for bid. Once we have hard numbers, then we go back to the board for approval and come back here for approval. So we're not looking for approval for any money for construction yet. We always bring it back. Once we have these 3 projects numbers, then we will bring them back here, and then between the board and this body and the other county commissioners, it will be determined whether we can do 1, 2, or 3.
Chair Blair?
Of course, we've already approved the design, and
Yes.
that's in the process. Do you see any reason, because you just mentioned, as far as funding, that's on down the road. If you already had the approval by this committee and by budget, and would that pick up the pace for the three additions as soon as you got the design back and you could put them out to bid and see what they cost? Would that not speed the process up a little bit?
Having the funding to go forward would save us 15 to 20 days. That's it. Because until we have the bid, I don't have anything. They can't, we typically have the contractors hold their bids for 45 days, which allows us to go to the board and then go through this process. So if we had funding, I would still have to go to the board. So we would save maybe 20 days. It's not going to save months or whatever. The problem incurs is, I'm seeing, and I'm going to use round numbers, 27 million each. If you guys have that kind of money, or you think you do, then yes, it can save us 20 days, but it's not going to save us anything on the front end going forward. Until I have a bid, and I'm not saving anything.
So how soon after you get the design will you ask for a bid then?
Typically, once design is complete, when the project goes out for bid, we have a 3-week bid cycle.
But you have to come back to us
After I get the bid, then we come back to you.
Before you do the bid, do you not have to come back to us after the design?
No, we do not. I don't come back to this body. Once you've approved funding for design, I don't come back here till I've got a bid in hand, and I can tell you what it's going to cost.
Mr. Gurley?
I think, if we're talking about saving 20 days, once we get the bid, I'm not opposed to, a special call meeting is very economical compared to what we're about to spend. I mean, we're talking about a few $1,000s for a special call meeting to save 15 days or so on the project thing. So
that would be what I would seriously look at. And the reason I say that is, right now we're struggling to get suppliers to hold bids 10 days. And it's an industry-wide thing. Haynes Brothers Lumber, if I call them up for lumber, I'm having trouble getting them to bid our summer lumber package because their suppliers won't hold the bid but 10 days. So we're going to be 10 days, but I'm not going to buy it till July 1. So they're not wanting to bid. So you are correct that if we get to that point, and I could tell the contractors that instead of holding their bid for 30 days, you're going to hold your bid for 10. There's a very real possibility that we could save a little money when we get to that point, because then they can turn it around quicker, and we could have it set up to have a special called board meeting, and we would not want to put all 3 of these projects out for bid at the exact same time, just because the contractors in the area don't have the manpower to do it. So typically what we do when we have multiple projects bidding is we put one out for bid, and then 2 weeks later we put the other one out for bid. So it could be possible that we would ask for 2 special called meetings, get the first 2 bids, do the special call to turn those loose, and then a special call for the third one.
Yeah, I think a special call meeting is a cheap alternative. I hate to approve funding when you don't know what you're approving funding for, but a special call meeting, I'm not for just randomly calling special call meetings, but for a project of this magnitude, a special call meeting seems to be expedient in keeping the project moving and also doing due diligence with the county and the taxpayers' money.
Yes, sir. Until we have a number, I mean, if you guys want to pick a number today, that's fine. I'm not asking for that, and I don't see the need for it. But you're correct. If we could maybe, as we get closer to these bid dates, look at maybe a special call to turn them loose, I think it could save us some money and also make our bids a little better.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Any other business for this committee? Not. We're adjourned. Thank you.